Chapter 1 Xia Ange is back 1. Xia Ange is back. When she heard the news, Xia Susu had already walked to the church door holding a bouquet and wearing her white wedding dress custom-made from Europe. Xia Ange, why are you back? She panicked for a moment. If the little sister beside her hadn't reminded her that the groom was already waiting inside, she would have almost forgotten that it was her wedding inside. Yes, today is the joy of the marriage between the Gong group and the daughter of the Xia family witnessed by the whole city. Inside, that man will finally become her Xia Susu's man. So what if she, Xia Ange, appears again? It's too late. Taking a deep breath, Xia Susu's delicate and charming face once again showed the brightest and brightest smile and stepped into the wedding scene that belonged only to her. Dear viewers, this is the most eye-catching wedding live broadcast of the century in Binching. Gong Ju, the chief heir of the Gong group, known as the Shanghai Empire, will marry Miss Xia Susu, the daughter of the Hanhai group, today. This wedding of the century will promote better business prosperity in Binching. Please look, our noble and beautiful bride has arrived. The wedding of the century was indeed different. Even the media was invited. Xia Susu was very satisfied. Seeing all the burning and envious looks cast towards her, she walked towards the ceremony step by step like a queen. The man on the stage was really impeccable. The well-tailored black suit and groom's dress perfectly modified his straight and thin figure. His facial features were handsome and clear-cut. His deep eyes showed no expression, and he seemed to be looking down at all living beings. Every time he looked at him slightly, he showed dignity and indifference. Yes, he has always been so cold, even on this special day. But what does this matter? Immediately, he was the best thing Xia Susu had ever received in her life. The bride, Miss Xia Susu, are you willing to marry Mr. Gong Ju and stay with him for the rest of your life? I do. Xia Susu almost couldn't wait to say these 3 words. In the church, the guests who heard the sound laughed. Miss Xia's family looks really anxious. The pastor was also a little surprised, but due to good professional ethics, he asked him to continue asking. Mr. Gongjue, the groom, are you willing to marry Miss Xia Susu and stay with her forever? He doesn't want to. Like a thunder in the flat, this time, in the church, the words that should have been answered by the bridegroom and the duke were suddenly replaced by a cold female voice without any warmth. What is this sound? Everyone turned around in shock, only to find that in the church, on the gorgeous carpet that was originally only for the bride to walk, someone didn't know when, another woman appeared. And she is a woman even more beautiful than the bride. Isn't this Xia Homing's eldest daughter Xia Ange? Why is she here? Yes, if you didn't tell me, I would have forgotten. This was the #1 socialite in Binching back then. Wasn't it reported that she was missing 5 years ago? Why did she suddenly appear? Xian Song. Xia Ange's beauty is so powerful and domineering. Even though she disappeared for 5 years, as soon as she appeared, she still stole everyone's attention. Xia Susu began to tremble, and her eyes were frightened through the thin wedding dress at the man who was only 1 step away from becoming her husband. With a frosty complexion and knowing eyes, he still stood there motionless, but his whole body was staring at the woman who was walking step by step, with the evil spirit, anger, and resentment radiating from her body. The intertwining of various emotions brought the entire wedding scene to freezing point. Xian Song. Xia Susu finally screamed. Why do you say he doesn't want to? Today is my wedding, and he is my groom. Why do you make the decision for him? Chapter 2 Xia Ange is back too. Xian Song? Yes, she is Xia Ange, a woman who has disappeared for 5 years. Xia Ange. Xia Ange smiled lowly, not looking at the various glances directed at her from all around. Her actions and gestures all revealed nobility and elegance, and her bright red dress became the focus of the wedding. Hasn't she, Xia Ange, always been like this? Stretching out her hand, as if to show off, She took out the small red book and showed it in front of everyone's eyes. Because he is on my marriage certificate. So, in other words, if he says I do today, he will be bigamous. Miss Xia, is this a sufficient reason? With one sentence, the whole place was in an uproar. Shocked, disbelieving, angry, disgusted. In just a few seconds, the entire wedding scene was turned into a mess, as if a bomb had been dropped. The heir to the Gong family is already married, and he is still married to the eldest lady of the Xia family, who has disappeared for 5 years. This is incredible. The Gong and Xia families began to feel unstable, and the guests also began to make commotion. This is impossible, Xia Ange. You must have seen me snatch Brother Ju away, and that's why you did it on purpose. Your marriage certificate must be a forgery. Before she could say the word, maid, Xia Susu, who was out of control, saw the conspicuous numbers on the snatched marriage certificate, and all the expressions on her face suddenly stopped. May 26th, 2020. Wasn't that 5 years ago? May 26th, that's not her Xia Ange's birthday. Xia Susu's face finally turned pale little by little, and her hands began to tremble violently. It turns out that the rumor back then was true. It is rumored that the heir to the Gong family of the plutocratic empire has impeccable handsome appearance and powerful ability to control the wind and rain. So many women come after him, ranging from small celebrities to big ladies. All of them dream of throwing themselves into his arms. But as for him, Wan Ziqianhong looked down upon her, but he only loved the eldest daughter of the Xia family of the Hanhai group like a treasure. What kind of pet is it? No one knew, but 5 years ago, it was obvious to everyone that Gong spent hundreds of millions to buy a piece of land near the sea and built a manor called Ngiyuan. Xia Ange Garden. Xia Susu finally threw away the red notebook and grabbed the man standing in front of her like crazy. Brother Ju, this is not true, right? Today is our wedding, and she is here to cause trouble, right? The guests at the venue began to stir up excitement, and the media began to report the latest news. According to the latest news from this newspaper, the wedding of the century has begun to take a turn. The eldest daughter of the Xia family, Xiaoan, who has disappeared for 5 years, appears with a marriage certificate. Then the heir to the Gong family. Click. Throw them all out. After watching the show for so long, the leading actor of this wedding finally spoke out. However, when he spoke out like this, everyone in the scene felt uncomfortable. First, the media reporters were collectively smashed with their camera equipment and kicked out. Then, everyone saw this man who suddenly looked like hell, stepping down from the stage step by step. Cheyenne Song. He gritted his teeth and said the name word by word, and the people in the auditorium immediately stepped aside without realizing it. Such murderous intent. Xia Ange was also scared. Although she had anticipated the outcome before coming, when he really walked towards her like a bloodthirsty demon, she still couldn't help but take a step back. It's really bad. She made this person angry as soon as she came. Chapter 3 Xia Ange's back 3. What? Are you scared? The Xia singer tightened her fingers and almost ran away under the too sharp gazes of this man. However, just for that moment, some scattered fragments flashed through her mind, causing her eyes to meet him stubbornly. Why should I be afraid? I'm just here to stop you from committing a crime. This is for your own good. Are you still telling him that it's for his own good? Gong Ju grabbed her chin almost as fast as thunder. Xia Ange, how can you be so shameless? Xia Ange was stabbed hard in the heart. Yes, Xia Ange is shameless. She was shameless 5 years ago, and she is still shameless 5 years later. Husband, how can you say that to me? Although I am not as beautiful and young as my sister, as your wife, I have the right to protect your future. If you really want to marry her, you can divorce me, and it will not be too late to marry her again. Her understated tone and graceful smile all showed everyone that she, Xia Ange, was actually good for the other half on the marriage certificate. Gong Ju suddenly let go and smiled. So, Are you playing? Xia Anja's whole body was suddenly tense, as if facing a powerful enemy. She naturally knows the temper of the heir to the Gong family very well. If he puts all his anger on his face, that's okay. It means that he hasn't taken it to heart at the moment, and you can stroke his hair again. However, if he completely regains his composure and no trace of content can be seen on his face, then you are finished, and what awaits you will be an end you can never predict. Xia Anj suddenly felt that she had come to the wrong place this time and turned around quickly. She wanted to leave this place, but at this time, the man behind her had already said expressionlessly, "Everyone, Xia Anj and I did get married 5 years ago, but 2 months later, I went to the court through a lawyer to dissolve her marriage, so I have no relationship with her now." That's how it turns out. As soon as Gong Ju said these words, everyone at the wedding scene breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Xia Anj with even more contempt, ridicule, and disgust. It turned out that I just wanted to turn around. I thought she was such a noble young lady, but that's all. That's right, a man who is divorced and still wants to steal his sister. How shameless is this? No wonder she disappeared for 5 years without any reason. It seems that she must have done something shameful, right? That is, this man is really capable. With just a few words, he successfully beat a good wife who came to stop him from committing a crime into the ranks of sluts. There was a moment when Xia Anj couldn't hold on any longer, but who was she, Xia Anj? She was a person who had been reborn from the ashes after 5 years. How could she be defeated so easily? After pausing for just a second, she elegantly raised her thick, wavy hair again. Really? I've been missing for so long that I don't even know what's going on around me. But Mr. Gong, as far as I know, our country's marriage law stipulates that if one of the spouses disappears, it will take 4 years to file a public prosecution for divorce. How could Mr. Gong go to a lawyer to file a public prosecution in 2 months? Husband, stop making trouble. Everyone is watching. The last sentence is definitely a stroke of genius. Because not only the heir of the Gong family, who had always been calm and decisive, was stunned, but even the guests present opened their mouths, as if they really couldn't believe this drastic change in the plot. Xia Anj turned out to be the young mistress of the Gong family. In the silence, Xia Anj turned around gracefully, just as she came, with her skirt flying and her smile bright, just like the #1 lady in Bincheng who could be easily recognized at a glance, even if she was walking on the street 5 years ago. "Ju, I need you, so forgive my shamelessness and selfishness. One day, I will repay you." Chapter 4, Xia Anj's back 4. There has been big news in Bincheng in the past 2 days. The media reporters are very busy. They open the webpage casually, and the screen is full of news about the marriage between Gong Xia and his family. Of course, the one with the highest number of clicks was about the royal empress who broke into the scene holding a marriage certificate to save her husband. In the cafe with bright and clean windows, Xia Anj sat there elegantly, flipping through the magazine on the table with his fingers intentionally or unintentionally. It's really good, even though she, Xia Anj, has now become the laughingstock of the whole city. She is still so photogenic, beautiful, and generous. "Miss, your coffee is here. Do you want sugar in this cup?" Xia Anj raised his eyes. His clean face, without any trace of makeup, looked stunning. "No, just put some ice in it." "With ice?" The waiter doubted his ears. "Freshly brewed mocha coffee with ice?" However, this noble and elegant woman who refused to look at her for the first time seemed to no longer want to talk about the first time. She turned her head and looked out the window again. When the waiter saw it, he finally went back to get ice cubes. About 15 minutes later, there was a crunch in the coffee shop, and someone was suddenly pushed away from the outside. The people inside looked up and were immediately startled by the noble but cold and silent figure at the door. "Gentlemen." The waiter only said this, and his eyes were stunned by the innate cold and noble temperament of this intruding man, as well as his facial features that were so handsome that people didn't dare to look directly at him. This is not a palace. I don't want anyone here within an hour. Yes, Mr. Gong. A person like this doesn't need to say a word at all, and there will be many people in the world willing to serve him. In the blink of an eye, the cafe where music was flowing and whispers just now was replaced by the sound of the man's footsteps walking towards him step by step. Also, her Xia Ange could not control her heartbeat. What? Are you still afraid? After the footsteps stopped suddenly, what followed was the sarcasm and viciousness that she had expected. Xia Ange raised his head, his eyes as soft as a spring breeze. How could it be? My husband asked me to stay and wait for him, so of course I have to be obedient and wait for him. Sit down quickly. Ju, the coffee has been added with ice for you. After saying that, her fingers had skillfully stirred the cup of coffee in front of him. Gong Ju watched coldly, neither speaking nor moving. He only waited for her to stir the cup of coffee in front of him and then moved her beautiful and slender fingers. Waiter, bring me a cup of Blue Mountain coffee. Blue Mountain coffee? Xia Ange's stirring fingers froze there. He didn't like to drink this before. This was because one time when she went out with him, she liked to drink iced coffee. But unfortunately, her aunt came over that day. He wouldn't let her drink iced coffee, so he drank her coffee. From then on, he fell in love with this taste. I still remember that he always liked to say, "Anan, I was led astray by you. You ruined my coffee like this." But now, he wants to drink the Blue Mountain coffee that he was most reluctant to touch before. Xia Ange retracted his hand, feeling a trace of pain in his heart. It turns out that as time goes by, some habits will change. Gu Chen, give the things to Miss Xia. Yes, Mr. Palace. The man sitting there lazily and quietly, with alternating long legs, a dark green shirt and black casual trousers, has an aura that makes people dare not look directly at him, and behind his seemingly careless appearance, there is an impenetrable depth. Chapter 5 Xia Ange's Back 5. This man is so terrible, it's better not to mess with it. Xia Ange raised his head and carefully took what the man standing next to him handed over. They were several thin pieces of A4 paper, snow-white paper, with the fragrance of ink still permeating it. However, as soon as she got the thing, she felt as if something had stabbed her hard in the bottom of her heart. She almost couldn't hold it with her fingers. Divorce agreement? Xia Ange's face finally lost the elegance it had just now, replaced by the sadness as pale as paper. Divorce? He actually wanted to divorce her? Could it be? Was she already disgusted and hated in his heart to that point? He firmly grasped the tissues in his palm, and without realizing it, the slender nails on his fingers had dug deeply into his flesh. So, what kind of pain is it? A Jew. What are you doing? Didn't you see it clearly? I remember it was clearly written on it. As long as you sign, the Xia family's old house will be yours. At this moment, finally, the lazy and casual man opposite him laid his eyes on her. But it was this look that made Xia Ange's heart sink to the bottom. It was the same look as looking at a stranger. If she looked at him yesterday when she was making a big fuss at the wedding, there was shock and anger in her eyes. So now, all that's left is the strangeness and alienation that she fears most. The Xia family's old house? That was originally her Xia Ange's. Xia Ange took a deep breath and finally pushed back the thin pieces of paper. Did Mr. Gong give it away too cheaply? If I remember correctly, our country's marriage law stipulates that if the couple divorces, the property must be divided in half. Mr. Gong is now taking the Xia family's old house that originally belonged to me and wants to give it away to me. Isn't it a good idea? After saying this, the entire coffee shop fell silent. A few very simple words, no extreme reactions, no crying and begging. This woman, faced with this sudden divorce agreement, turned out to be shockingly calm. Gong Ju finally narrowed his eyes slightly, and the aura all over his body was staring at this woman, like a bloodthirsty beast that had been angered to the point of being angry in the dark night. Xia Ange, very good. You really gave me a big surprise. Gu Chen, let's go. Gu Chen was stunned. Mr. Gongwei. Xia Ange was also confused by this man's totally unconventional route. Walk. At this time, shouldn't he be like an angry tiger and kill her violently? Even if she doesn't die, according to his temper, her skin will peel off even if she doesn't die. Why is it so abnormal? Are you leaving? Xia Ange felt uneasy. Seeing that he had already picked up her windbreaker and was about to leave, she finally couldn't control herself and stood up too. Adieu. Xia Ange, you will regret it. There was a sudden gloom that was almost as close as hell. As soon as Xia Ange raised his eyes, he was already faced with a pair of cold eyes that seemed careless, but there was a biting coldness inside. Sky. His expression is so terrible. Xia Ange's hands and feet finally became cold. Looking at the figure who finally left, she fell heavily back to her seat. In the bottom of her heart, it was as if she had been crushed by something, and she could no longer feel comfortable. Chapter 6, How Dare She Go to His House? 1. 2 days later. The sun is shining brightly. The sun is scorching. The Gongshe Group building located in the city center is a towering high-rise building, all made of tempered glass. In the sunlight, it exudes a dazzling majesty, and its unique diamond rhombus-cut design has also become a landmark building in Vincheng. The Gong Group can be said to be an imperial enterprise that even children know about in Vincheng. For example, the most eye-catching government projects in the city are all developed by the Gong family. Another example is that all real estate properties in Bincheng are controlled by the Gong family. There are many more. It can be said that the Gong Group is like a huge spider web, covering the entire economic lifeline of the city. But for such an imperial enterprise, in the past 2 days, there seemed to be ice in the office of the person in charge. Secretary Xiao Lu and Assistant Xiao Zhong looked at the man sitting behind the desk smoking from a distance, their eyes blurred.